So the first two poems are some short poems that I wrote about my relationship to water and then also Chinatown. And then Jackie and I wrote a poem as if we were text messaging, and I am speaking in the voice of drought, and Jackie's speaking in the voice of flood because she's from New Orleans. So we're just looking at different relationships between water. So that's what we're doing tonight. So I'll just pull up my document and then we'll get into the poems. So water. 1.1 billion people worldwide lack access to water. There are more mobile phones in the world than there are toilets. When you have it, it's hard to see it, isn't it? Water, so clear, so boring and tasteless. As an exorcism to the last lover, I joined a hot yoga cult. For 21 days, I must drink half of my body weight in ounces, nearly a gallon. When you Google what water scarcity looks like, there are few images except this: a white sea of cows twitching on their bloated sides like a fish. We're out of it. We're drowning in it. Death porn. My second poem is called Wendy in Chinatown. It's a two-part poem. So part one. It's rare for Peter to pick up a phone and dial into me the sound of 10,000 firecrackers going off at the stroke of a star gone dim. Chinatown usually ends at daybreak. Peter only calls when he thinks I'll leave him. He knows without seeing me, I'm sitting cross-legged on the floor, sewing my heart back, grayscale embroidery, an act of mending. What a shadow I've become. I smell like his soap. Peter would be disgusted with my use of heart in a poem. He's not a poet, but a critic. He tells me he's deep cleaning the loft we sleep in, floors and all, a perfect promise of Sunday on a Monday morning. Later, he'll go to market for avocados, make a dinner I can't taste from this distance. His house is not my home, I tell each stitch. I make the ins and outs of me come together. I tell the phone, my son is sick and unable to eat, fever suckling his will to fly. I apologize for the insanity of care. I cannot leave him, and by him, I mean my son. 2. Chinatown bends all loves into a cage. There was a time I'd mother a lover as if designed entirely for his needs. I was desire. Peter will text me pictures of mermaids and marmalade, tell me how much I would like them. I hate them. My body not made for jealousy vomits up a sea in the desert. Peter can't be blamed for not knowing the history of thimbles, how the rim is meant to be cut and worn as a ring. I've turned into the sound of clanging metals. I am to blame for this misthinking every kiss leads to a lifetime. I am the dumb bird shot down. I pretended dead so many times that another isn't worth the burial. We don't grow up, but we do grow older. I can feel the commute in my hips. Night strains my back. I wanted my love to be as light as starshine. I tell Peter I can't keep living this way, and mean too long in Chinatown turns us into psychopaths. Too long in reality turns us into zombies. I'm exhausted, failing to water my yard. Summers are not made to last, but drought is. Didn't I see a hook on the nightstand last time I was over, the gleam of a little sickle cradled in a wind-up clock? Peter, we don't need to grow old, but I can't survive watching the world die young. Can't we be more than this never story? Between the bars closing and the sun rising, trash trucks bang bins between the back alleys, a real world living house between our playing house. Morning in Chinatown, the birds nest between roof tiles. The market opens, the church door opens, a river of cars rush around us, world upon world. Peter, what story are we in? And why did it land inside a town within a city, within something that's like a movie? All right, and now it's drought and flood.
There it is.
All right, here we go. So just imagine that this is a poem done in text messages. So
there it is.
There it is. All right. It is cold here. Bodies are ashen. Every touch looks like snow, dry skin falling. Nothing here to melt. How have you been?
It is cold here. Yesterday it was hot, the air like a silk fairy tale, the wind saturated and soft. It took my rent money, sent me walking down veterans. Do you ever feel like you're living in a play someone else is writing?
My mouth causes fires, not anything worth writing about. I only burn myself. My life is more like lists for lists. At minimum, there are 300 people to disappoint every day. You seem so outside of dust. What is it like to be lush?
Moss hangs from the arms of live oak like avocado smoke, like a full crown of dreaded wisdom. The rain comes and goes, puddles in places, a broken pipe gushing, directed by the sewage and water board to the storm drain, the catch basin, to under the cars parked along the street out front of my apartment. The water comes and goes, as above, so below.
It was your birthday. A cyberbird told me so. Spring baby, egg baby, sky and a stone baby. How do you celebrate the rain? What can a desert send you by mail? I've a bucket of quartz if your chakra could use the weight.
In Chinatown, the conflict is over water rights, the Los Angeles River, right? Who owns it? As if a river can be owned. People can be a river, a source of revenue. How can I help you feel how no one makes you feel at home, both special but with a warmth that's fleeting? Because, like the aquifer under the San Bernardino, the source is stationary, is the land itself, what's under it, who's worked it, and lived in its live oak and magnolia, its lily waters, the fairy tale veneer that is particular to every place, perhaps, the story.
You are living under a story of water too. Isn't that true or insensitive? Yes, conflict is really over people. Water is always the victim. It has been too long since we talked in parking lots and sang on your back porch. Funny to think it isn't your backyard anymore. And by funny, I mean sad. By yours, I mean ours. It's morning, but the moon is still full as I travel towards you. What will your new life smell like? What happens when water is in the air, is everywhere?
I came for the fairy tale and stayed for the story, a changeling prayer for water, the music of it, increasingly sensitive to its edifying touch, its eddy, never sensitive enough. 5 years later, what do I know?
Why did you come here? What did you want?
Or as a Bonnie might ask, you are from where? I had just finished Dinner Bait, which I wrote with Casper's help in the hopes that Reza Ali would fall back in love with me. It was an engagement ring of sorts, me who never believed in the hetero white ritual of marriage, but she had me thinking about it. A doomed and dubious enterprise. She was never coming back. I think I knew that before Allison took me to the train depot at Union Station. I was trying to realize the dream. The setup was nearly a year beforehand, how to pay for it. I imagined the water in the desert, each train track its own tributary, one unnecessary piece of plastic after another, shipped from China to Long Beach, and then the tracks all the way north to Cherry Point, home, home. Cut to car two, cargo, my body and bicycle, a tsunami of unnecessary things. My movement seemed necessary after 10 years in Riverside, the impression of orange blossoms, faint as a David Lynch narrative. Honestly, would I say the same thing 10 years from now?
As a girl from one prison town to another prison town, there's something of home that is inescapable. Come back home.